After the Orlando shooting, Hillary Clinton told NPR that in order to counter self-radicalization, which is what she assesses happened to the Orlando shooter Omar Mateen, she wants to create a team exclusively dedicated to detecting and preventing lone wolf attacks and possibly expanding terrorist watch lists. She's also calling for creating more, quote, integrated intelligence use among a variety of law enforcement agencies to strengthen communication between agencies. That's all well and good. We've talked about the reality that communication interagency rather, communication between FBI and other federal law enforcement and state and local law enforcement, it often hasn't been very good. And Hillary Clinton suggested that if we got more information to local law enforcement from federal and national law enforcement, that it could help to prevent attacks like the shooting in Orlando. And a lot of people are generally okay with the concept of working to prevent lone wolf attacks, but concerned that Hillary Clinton is going in the direction of giving up even more privacy for not even for security, but for maybe the perception or feeling of security, which we now know, Lewis. I mean, if the Edward Snowden leaks have taught us nothing else, they've taught us that that type of security and data collection and metadata, et cetera, it has not helped to prevent attacks. We initially were told by the NSA, all sorts of attacks were prevented by mass surveillance. We ultimately figured out that that was not the case. And Hillary Clinton now, according to some, going in the direction that is very, very concerning. We've spoken before, post 9/11, about trading privacy for security, and it hasn't worked out particularly well.
No, the communication is abysmal. There's misinformation that leads to people being indefinitely detained who have done absolutely nothing wrong and had no connections to terrorism whatsoever. I'm just imagining a situation now where, let's say, this happens. I mean, the FBI and CIA are, if they are aware of you, probably not going to start looking in your windows and following you around town.
Right.
But you hand this information to a local police department, and now, as if CIA and FBI agents aren't incompetent enough, you're dealing with local police, and the police chief tells all these good old boys that, we might have a terrorist in town. I think everyone can just imagine the insanity and absurdity that might ensue.
Well, yeah, Lewis is painting a pretty grim picture. We know what his opinion is about the competency of these individuals and really of everybody. As Lewis has said many times, he believes 80% of people are incompetent at the jobs that they are working in. But what can you do to reduce the likelihood of these attacks? We know spying isn't the answer. We know that, let's not forget the Snowden revelations. Obviously, Donald Trump's ideas also aren't the answer, and we'll deal with that a little bit later. We have to have better systems in place to prevent people who have come to the attention of the FBI from buying guns. But remember that the investigations into Omar Mateen by federal agencies were closed. So there was nothing there. I mean, one thing is, even if you're on the terror watch list, in many cases, you're still allowed to buy guns legally. We also have to remember that Mateen's investigation was closed, and arguably, given the information that the FBI had at the time, that may not have been the wrong decision. So right. What can we do? I mean, I think certainly there need to be more restrictions to prevent mentally ill people from getting guns. But again, that wouldn't have stopped this particular shooter. We need to cut down on the large capacity magazines to reduce the amount of damage that can be done in a given number of seconds when someone slips past law enforcement and is able to get guns. At least do some harm reduction by banning these large capacity magazines. But when people give up privacy for security, they're not really doing it for security. It's the perceived impression of security, and we know that.
Mm-hmm. There's also something to be said for speaking up when someone you know seems more agitated and more disturbed and more volatile than ever before.
Sure.
I know still, though, people are afraid of being labeled racist, Islamophobic. You never assume that someone is going to shoot up a club, but maybe everyone should just be a bit more aware, but then you need to balance that. I mean, you don't want people to be paranoid and afraid of everyone either.